Вашингтона из Москвы.
Let's now bring in Andrew Rasiulis, fellow Canadian Global Affairs Institute and retired official of the Department of National Defense. Good morning and thank you for your time, Andrew. Let me make a start by asking you of how things are playing out, especially between United States Donald Trump and Ukraine's Zelensky. You know, it's sort of a war of words that's broken out between them.
The latest war of words is about the fact that what Trump is suggesting is that if the Ukrainians had implemented the Minsk II agreements, which were signed in 2015, and had they implemented them, the suggestion is the Russians would have had no reason to attack, since they would have gotten a neutral Ukrainian buffer zone from that deal. So he's blaming the Ukrainians for not implementing that deal. On the popularity ratings, I mean, that's a bit of an issue because he says they're at 4% and most figures say at 50%. So that's just an off-the-wall thing.
Let's talk about Ukraine actually being left out from the first round of talks itself between the United States and Russia. And of course, we've seen how there was an emergency meeting held in Europe in regards with that. And then Zelensky also meeting with Turkey. Your take on how this is playing out in terms of ending the war?
Well, the Americans really want to push this, which is why they're trying to keep it really to the combatants or the protagonists, Russia, Ukraine, and the United States as a broker. And that's a key difference from Biden and where they were doing, having Ukrainians push it. And then, as Trump says, would take 3 years and got nowhere. So that's a major change in how they're going to make the deal. And the Americans want to drive this home. The Americans are also looking at their bilateral relationship with Russia, and not related necessarily just to Ukraine. Now, with the Ukrainians, Trump is saying, they're going to bring them in, and they offer them, depending what you read, Ukrainians were offered to be at the table in Saudi Arabia, but they refused to do that. So take your story on that one. But yes, behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. In fact, today in public, Kellogg, Trump's envoy, is arriving in Kyiv to talk to Zelensky. So that shows a continual dialogue that is actually taking place.
Let's talk about the concessions here. What's your understanding, the manner in which it's playing out? The fact that we're seeing how Ukraine will not be a part of NATO, as we have heard, is a victory of sorts for Vladimir Putin. And then we have the regions of Luhansk and Donetsk. We've had people from Trump administration saying that Ukraine should forget about returning to its original borders. Do you see a victory after victory coming in for Putin in that regard?
Well, I mean, Putin's going to get something from this. And like Rubio says, all options are on the table now. These are early days of a negotiating process, and I caution that. So I personally don't take anything off the table as of now. But given the, let's say, the trend line, if you will, yes, the territorial side of the equation, in all probability, Russia will walk away with most, if not all, of what it holds. And for Russia, Crimea and the land bridge to Crimea from Russia proper is absolutely key. And that will be, I believe, a victory for Putin in that sense. Now, the other side of the equation, which is the guarantees, the NATO membership, really, we all know the official positions, the rhetoric, no NATO for Ukraine in terms of the Russians and so on. But I think we have to wait to see how things work out. There is a spectrum of security guarantees that could be negotiated for Ukraine. And at this point, it's premature to really speculate on what those guarantees will be, even, I would suggest, on NATO membership.
Andrew Rasiulis, fellow Canadian Global Affairs Institute and retired official of the Department of National Defense. Appreciate your expertise, Andrew. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Akshay.